Some background. We are at the heels of a dilemma. Rabbi Yasker has guided us for the last 3 months on how to deal with the shul's opening. But right now we have a dilemma, and I'll try to characterize it as unintended consequences. We opened up the outdoor minyanim. In the June weather, we are finding that people are very uncomfortable. We have people 60, 70, 80 years old, cannot handle the outdoor weather. And they are insisting on going to Davin, so they have other options. They have BRS, they have Chabad. They're going to places where we feel that they shouldn't be going. So we want to open indoors. When I say we want to open indoors, we have an environment where we could.
I don't know if this is my problem here on my end.
We hear you. We don't see you.
I'm going to relocate my computer. I'm sorry.
Use your iPhone. So I'm the president. Pacey is the first vice president. We have David Chesla, who's the third vice president. And we are constantly told we need to open up, and we believe we can open up in a safe environment. We have a very big shul that holds over 200 people, and we could limit it to 40 people, maintaining a large spacing. We're a very homogeneous population. All of us elderly, and all of us, thank God, are incident.
Any better now?
Much.
No?
No.
Can't see you.
You know what? If you guys can hear each other, maybe you could talk to one another.
We're doing
I
that.
don't know. Does anybody know if
I love you, Rabbi Yasker, but your computer has got to be updated. So we are.
I got it. Okay.
We got it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, Dr. Marcus, thank you for your patience. Dr. Marcus is Chief Executive Officer. Now I left the other sheet of the company's name.
Optimum ICU Solutions. I do ICU consultation all over the country.
Thank you. Jonas Weiser, Dr. Jonas Weiser is our president. Casey Ackerman, the vice president. We might be joined by David Cheslow, another vice president. And so I just want to thank Dr. Marcus, not just for his patience tonight, but in general, we just met by phone last Thursday, and he's been very, very generous with his time, both in conversation and in email exchange. And he's a crucial partner in the BRS COVID team for designing safe procedures. And Dr. Marcus said, Jonas, do you want to start with a question to Dr. Marcus?
So I already introduced some of the dilemma that we have.
Okay, good.
That we have successfully managed beautifully under Rabbi Yasker for the last 3 months. We have had really only one peripheral incident of somebody out of our membership getting, got COVID because they were hospitalized without it and brought home with it. And they passed away quickly after that. Other than that, we have been very blessed. We had another incident where somebody's aide had COVID. They self-quarantined for 2 weeks and they tested negative. So Baruch Hashem, we are in a good place. But what we have is a very, very sincere community of people who want to go to shul. So as soon as we opened up, we had 40 people coming to Mincha Marav, maybe 50 people coming to Mincha Marav. Now people are clamoring for not only an indoor minyan, because they can no longer handle the outdoor minyan. The chakras we tried as of Sunday proved to be very debilitating. Even for me, I nearly fainted. I'm more robust than most, and other people just said they can't do it. So we are looking to open up the shul under very controlled conditions. You see how BRS does it. Now, Rabbi Yasker is aware that we are risk aversive. We don't want anybody to get sick. We heard that there were 2 people in BRS, the Minyanim, who got COVID, presumably not at the Minyan. So we are risk aversive, but on the other hand, we know we can never handle zero risk. And if we do things right in the Minyanim with everybody spaced properly, we feel that we can handle it. Rabbi Yasker would like to know that from a medical point of view, Pacey and I are not crazy. He's asking you not to be an ICU consultant, but our psychiatrist. So you understand the dilemma. We're anxious to do something that we think is timely, and our congregation, our Kahila, is saying BRS open, Chabad's open, they haven't had a huge wave of disasters. We know we are more conservative, but we are ready to open up indoors. Can you advise us on the risk issues? If we open up under the proper conditions, can we maneuver this, or are we being unrealistic?
Sure, sure. So, I mean, the short answer is yes, you can open up with the right, obviously steps that are taken to avoid risks. You guys are literally sitting in the heart of, unfortunately, the greatest tragedies from this pandemic. We're still experiencing, as early as about a half an hour ago, I admitted a patient that caused our current COVID ICU to hit its maximal limit. So we may have to open up another one, but as you guys know, the cases are going up in Florida. But I do think that there is a safe way for you guys to open up, similar to the concept that I presented and what was employed over at BRS, meaning that you have the kind of setup where there's really distancing. We actually use an 8-foot distancing outdoors. Now we use a 10-foot indoors at BRS. I think 8 feet is more than enough. It's also vaulted ceilings, which cause the air that's being pushed in through the air conditioning to rise up as opposed to, below across a finite room. People enter through one exit. There are specific places. There's one Baal Tefillah, Baal Kriya. Minyanim are very short, concise. The whole idea about chiyuvim goes away. It's basically, this is the person that's going to be leaning and davening. And when davening is completed, people walk out an opposite door so that we're not crossing back over where we were. I think it's a safe approach. I think it will continue to be successful, God willing, through the Yamim Noraim. And I think it's completely appropriate. I think it's a safe option to implement by you. Now, the concerns that are very real, again, you have a homogeneous community, very different than anywhere else in Boca, but the community may or may not have people that come in from the outside. Everybody's got their expert. Everybody's got their, I can't even tell you how many phone calls I get. People say, well, my doctor in New York, he told me X, Y, and Z. We can't use New York as a standard in our community. I don't think that I can tell you, none of my colleagues, critical care colleagues, feel that they're experts on managing COVID. In fact, one of them made the point and said, look, I know I've seen more cases than you, but would you say to somebody that speed dated, that spoke to 80 women in the night, that he was the expert on dating? Obviously not. You need time to analyze the disease. You need time to manage it. You need options to manage it. Right now, there is no cure. Our response rate to the plasma, the convalescent plasma, is only 60%. Remdesivir does not help in the context of anybody who's admitted to the ICU.
Did you say 60%?
60%, 60. We have not had the kind of response that I have no idea where the data count. There's data out there that says 100%. We've never 90%. No, but 60% of our patients respond. And my definition of response is that it's a disease-altering regimen. You give it, and something magical happens, and suddenly they're coming off the ventilator. Suddenly their blood pressure stabilizes. Okay, so 40% of our patients didn't make a difference. These patients ended up either unfortunately dying from the illness, or they ended up with a tracheostomy, a PEG tube, and they're in a long-term care facility. I will tell you that many of our patients that ended up with trachs and PEGs from 2-3 months ago have recovered. But it's a long ride and it's debilitating. And I can tell you that the cognitive, physical, the whole. Yeah, they don't recover normally. They just don't recover normally. We haven't seen too many, actually, with the only cases that we've seen that bounced back to the ICU were people that were infected, were tested negative, left the hospital, had positive antibodies, gave plasma. So we had 2 unfortunate cases where they became reinfected and one of them succumbed within 2 days. It was like it came back like a roar, like he couldn't even control it. So that's that piece of the introduction. I think what's really important is that the members of the community know that we are opening up. It says, we all say that on one hand, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh LaZeh, that each one of us have a responsibility to be cognizant of where we go and who we're with and who comes into our houses. And the unfortunate friend of mine in BRS that was infected, this is a guy that this cleaning lady, he wasn't wearing a mask, so she gave it to the entire family. We see these cases as recently as a person that had to see his grandchildren, and they got together for Shavuot, and right after Shavuot that night, Erev Chag, Erev Shabbos, Motzei Shabbat, he wasn't feeling well. He came to the hospital. His lungs were almost completely whited out, and within 3 days he was dead. And unfortunately, his wife, I don't know what happened to his wife.
My wife and I had this argument. You just settled the case. I want the cleaning lady. She doesn't. We're not getting a cleaning lady.
Well, listen, my wife wanted to get rid of it. I wanted my wife to be happy, saying, "Oh, keep the cleaning." But our cleaning lady wears a professional mask. I don't mess around. You have to understand, people.
But we don't allow anybody into our minyan. No one comes into our minyan who's not a living member, who's been here the whole time.
Yeah. So then there's other things that will come up, and I will tell you that no matter what you do, and you guys know this, but what you do, there's going to be people on both sides. You're going to people that say, "Hey, you're not being safe enough," and you're going to have I call them the late sanim, the ones that make fun of everything that we try to do. They say it's ridiculous. In New York, there's weddings. My friends are getting together, and people that will travel. They'll go up. They'll travel like everything is great, and there's always a risk that you bring something back. So, again, a big part of that is that people are traveling. They need to be tested.
With Rabbi Yasker's help, and we've stood those people to the corner. They are silenced.
Good, yeah.
They're still arguing, but we're not paying attention. But we think that
that's the story. We're coming up to the Parsha. We're coming up to the Parsha where, you're always going to have that. So you cannot appeal to them. And if not only that, but you're going to have people that say, I read the news and the governor, and I can tell you right now that you're not going to see the statistics. You're not going to find it on the I can tell you, I don't even think any of the patients. I have 14 patients right now in the ICU. Pretty much they're all ventilated right now. It's not a good situation, but I can tell you they're not going to show up on the evening news. The plan is that COVID's over. COVID's over. It's not there. It's a peak, but it's not as bad as we think it is. But I will tell you that the numbers will speak for itself.
I know you're right. I know you're right. But we are fortunate that we're living in a bubble. In our zip code, there have been only about 60 cases in our entire zip code. And in our community, there were 3 cases, but not stemming from our community and completely managed, bringing them back to 0.
Right.
So we know Kadosh Baruch Hu has given us a gift.
Baruch
At the same time, we feel that under very controlled circumstances, some people, Erlich, will do other things that are worse. And we have to provide them with an option. We'll still have an outdoor minyan, but for those who will come and do foolish things, we need to open up an indoor minyan.
Yeah. I mean, we rely on each other. The same with me, same with you guys. I mean, it's we rely on other people just to make common sense. And it's unfortunate, but in the last couple of weeks, I've seen doctors do things that were so dangerous. And one doc was going around telling people, he made a comment to somebody that 100% of patients with the plasma, are cured. And he's a good friend of mine. And I confronted him. I said,
I don't want to be
when's the last time you were in the hospital? Where do you get this data from? And he's obviously, comes full circle because that's what happens here. And people are watching this very closely. And I told him it was irresponsible. The same guy runs out the same day. He's in Meisner visiting a cousin of his and having a drink at the bar. There's nobody in Meisner that wears a mask.
I was talking to Rabbi Yasker. Do you want to jump in at this point or any point?
Well, I've had a lot of conversation, Baruch Hashem, with with Dr. Marcus. I just, some people ask, how much of Boca is really impacted, Tachlis is really impacted by COVID.
So it's a couple of things about Boca. It's most of the cases are being managed at home. Hospitals, at the beginning, we were admitting everybody because it was just, that was the plan. They're sick, they're coming to the hospital. We're going to treat them until they get better. And then we ran out of supplies. So at the beginning, now we're trying to send people home, unless they're very sick, in which case we hospitalize them. So in Boca itself, the number of cases, and you guys, you know this, again, I've been watching it on the periphery because for me, it's just the ICU. It's the worst case scenario is what I deal with. So what I can tell you is that the number of cases have gone up. The degree of severity of illness is nowhere near where it was 2 months ago, meaning these patients can go home. They can stay sick. They have like a flu-like symptoms. They were basically in self-quarantine. And so far, those cases it's been okay. We've been able to manage it. There's a very small portion of those patients that end up coming to the hospital. But the number of cases have gone up. The number of ICU cases is a fraction of what it was at the peak of this illness. But the patients that come to the ICU, they're very sick. They're very sick. They don't respond to anything. They don't respond to any of the treatments that we're giving them. And pretty much all of them will have a poor outcome. Most of them have passed away. I can tell you in the last 2 weeks, we had, I wasn't here over the weekend. When I left, we have now 7 new cases. So let's say it's been since Shavuot now, I guess we're on 21 cases. Of the 21 cases that were here, 9 of them died. 9 of them died.
You've answered our questions, but I got to ask you, how are you taking care of yourself?
When I'm in the hospital, I have a spacesuit. Basically, it's like a complete protective covering. Thanks for asking. I get off Shabbos, so Shabbos is a big day for me, and I obviously shower at the home.
You're not wearing the mask now.
No,
So where are you?
I'm in a protective couple of different protected areas here. Hold on. Let me see. I don't know how to. Oh, here it is. This thing here.
Good. Baruch Hashem. I appreciate everything you've done for us.
See, it's
I
a
suddenly got very
protective.
nervous for you.
Yeah, it's a
I
protective
just got a
area.
little anxious.
Yeah, no, I tell you, I have an interesting background. I worked when HIV was first came out, when AIDS was first came out. I worked in a lab in Westchester, and I worked with it in a level 3 biohazard unit. I also
You work at Westchester Medical Center?
Yeah.
Yes, I worked I was at Einstein for a lot of years as a psychologist.
Wow, very nice.
And we worked at the Westchester. Then I worked for the state of New York as a mental health commissioner, and I did a lot of work at Westchester in psychiatry.
Very nice. Yeah, it's beautiful. It was a
good hospital. I'm sorry, everybody. Never mind.
Yeah. So, Dr. Marcus, in our outdoor minyanim, we have taken certain liberties. Sometimes while we had 2 simultaneous minyanim on the books, when the people showed up, it turned out that we didn't have adequate for 2 separate minyanims. We combined minyanims. I guess we felt that we were in a large area. We're outdoors. Do you see a group that's davening indoors? Can they take those same liberties or not?
No, again, I think not a problem davening indoors. I would say, I don't know the exact layout of the building, but typically you want 8. If you have a short ceiling, like in this hallway, I probably look at 10. Everybody's looking in one direction. People are wearing the masks appropriately. There was one minion that I saw where it started getting hot and people started pulling the mask. underneath their nose. Like people just need to follow the rules. There's one person that basically does the davening. You start from Yishtabach. You just go through. You just go through
No
the davening.
sermons. No sermons.
And no
sermons.
announcements either.
Right.
No announcements, no sermons.
complaints. No, all
No
that. other
thinking.
stuff. Yeah. It's that, so you can definitely do it. I think people are, a lot of times the minyanim are not full because people don't feel comfortable. They're still nervous. I think
We're not going to get a lot of people. Most people are not going to come.
No, depending on the
yeah,
schools.
yeah.
And we
It's,
pre-register. You have to
time you're not
pre-register, and we're not going to let people in Stamazai.
Yeah.
Without
yeah, I
booking.
agree.
So
agree.
I have to thank you. This has been very enlightening for us. And very defining for us. And you've been
Sure.
wonderful. And I
Sure.
really worry about you.
Well, thank you. Listen, if when you're in
You should be
davening,
well.
just when you're in davening, just say tefillot for us. I mean,
Yes.
there's a national shortage of intensivists. There's about 5,768 ICUs in the United States, and there's only about a little less than 5,000 critical care doctors. So there's a huge shortage, and even here there's a big shortage. And even though South Florida, there's a lot of intensivists. So just keep davening for us. And again, if anybody gets sick, if anybody is not well, if anybody needs to be tested, I'm glad to help with that as well. If you have
Thank
somebody
you.
that comes in from out of town and they want a
Thank
clean
you.
bill of whatever, I can get them
Thank you.
tested and results within 24, the max, maybe 30 hours.
Thank you.
How much should people in New York be afraid of people from Florida traveling to New York, and how much should we in Florida be afraid of people traveling from New York, New Jersey to Florida?
Right. So, I mean, there's two sets of data that you would think about. One is that the people in New York, if they were infected, the risk of an infection is very low. Reinfection is very low, although it's real. Okay. So that shouldn't make a difference whether you're coming from here or they're coming to here, right? The risk is very low. So people still need to take those precautions, at least unless they test negative. But they need to take some basic precautions about, wearing masks and that sort of thing. I think the safest thing is to get tested, because then you know that you're negative. It's two different tests. I usually recommend doing it 4 days apart, because the upswing of the viral load if it's not detected in day 0 and day 1 and day 4, you don't have it. This virus moves very quickly.
We still require Rabbi Yasker 2 weeks of self-quarantine if anybody comes down. We're not going to let them into the shul, outside or inside, for 2 weeks.
If you have a couple more minutes, since you mentioned the height of the ceilings, Dr. Marcus, we need to be focusing our attention on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. We hope that it will have large space, maybe in the clubhouse, but can't be sure yet. Hopefully get an answer soon.
Sure.
But if we have to, our main sanctuary is a vaulted ceiling. Our other davening rooms are no higher than, one's less than 8 feet, one's just comes in, I think, just about 8. One's 7.5, one's 8 feet high. The larger of those two others are 8 feet high.
That's kind of, yeah.
That's for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur.
Right. So, I mean, it's 8 feet is still low. It just is. I think, number one, obviously, nobody can predict the way things are after the summer. It's possible that the cases slow down enough and there's a minimal spike, but if things just peter out, come August, September, and, we have less to worry about, because, again, the risk of getting an infection is really based on the prevalence of the disease. And if it's really slowing down markedly, then it's possible the 8 feet will be fine. Let's suppose that it doesn't slow down. Let's suppose that the cases actually go up. In August, maybe in September, they slow a little bit, but it's a very real issue. So, I think the 8 foot mark, again, it's pretty low. You're not going to get as much circulation. I think the other option that you could consider because you also have a spatial issue, right? You want to keep people away from each other. So the other thing that you may want to consider is the tent option, the air-conditioned tent option. Those tents can be very big, and they can be very cold, and there's tons of room, and they're not expensive. It's not an expensive proposition. They come, they set it up. I can tell you, I've had Rosh Hashanah in one of those tents. It was amazing. I mean, they actually overdo it on the air conditioning, so you really get a lot of crosswind. It's extremely safe. That's one of the reasons why the medical tents we set up. There's a number of places in Miami that we set up field hospitals, but the first rendition, until we had the convention center in Miami Beach, which could house like 10,000 beds, were tents, large tents. And the minute you walked inside, you knew exactly why they had picked it, because you're constantly sucking air from the outside, and you're constantly regulating the air. You're pushing it through the facility. So that could be a real option. You could probably put more people in there with less worry because of the crosswind. But, again, there are other options so that everybody can be included. I think the only downside is that, you'd have to have a Baal Takea and the Baal Tefillah, and you'd have to figure out some of the other logistics. But listen, I bet you in your community I bet you there's a dozen or more than a dozen people that know how to lane and know how to daven and know how to blow. I mean, that's just
Not quite that many, but we manage.
Right.
And I think we need to forgive Rabbi Marcus for his other pressures, and we should thank you.
Sure.
I just have one
Very
quick
sincerely.
question. Can I have just
Very
one quick question,
sincerely.
Dr. Marcus?
Sure.
I'm sure God knows who you are, but I'd love to pray for you with your name. If you can give me your Hebrew name, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. It's Eitan Yochanan Ben Menachem.
Your mom's name?
My mom's name is Yehudit.
He's not sick.
I know. Want to make sure it stays that way.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marcus.
Thank you
Dr.
so much, guys.
Marcus.
Hatzlacha.
Yes,
Bracha natzlacha.
Have a good evening. Thanks very much
You
for
too.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Be well.
Bye.
You too.
Good Chodesh.
You too.
I'm going to ask you, Rabbi, can we meet again tomorrow and start talking about? I would not open up for the Rosh Chodesh at all, because I don't think we're prepared to deal with it.
For Rosh Chodesh?
It's
Well,
tomorrow.
that's only one day. We have to set up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to
that's
think
not-
about
Oh,
this.
no, we're not saying, no, first of all, we have to plan out that shul. It has to be marked clearly. It could take time to get that
Yes.
set up.
So I'd like to meet and just begin the process of laying it out.
Certainly up for it.
We could
When,
talk.
where, how, give us the time to sleep over
I'm
it.
not really available in the morning.
Oh, that's okay. There's not, I don't see us doing it regal achad. But we need to think it, and we need to start a process of thinking. David
You know,
takes the lead in that. David takes the lead
I
in
had
that,
started from my own understanding of the level of challenge. I had started, mapping out what the main sanctuary could hold if we were
Good.
doing like 6-foot distancing, which Dr. Marcus, in a conversation that I had with him earlier today, said that that's nothing. 6
But
feet.
I'd like to go to the sanctuary with a tape measure and see
Right,
what we can
right.
do.
Put it on the
Right.
grid.
So I'll be happy to show you the little schematic I started working on or whatever. Again, I wasn't doing it for 10 feet, but although before I left the shul tonight, I did just pace off and try to understand what we're talking about. But I think it's if you there on the north side of the main sanctuary, the men's north side, to the left, if you're facing the Aron Kodesh, to the left of the Aron Kodesh, that section. So there are most of the rows have 7 seats in them. So if you figure, if you put one person against the wall,
Right.
and one person, let's say on the aisle, maybe that's 10 feet. but then you have to create 10 feet in the rows. So, you're talking about, I think it's like, you're getting like 1 out of every 12 seats maybe they're available.
But
I mean,
in the
height of
not
it-
12, I'm sorry, not, one out, yeah, maybe one, I don't
See-
remember right now.
You're seeing it in your head, but I would like to go there with the tape measure.
Yeah.
Was the height of the ceiling a factor
Yeah,
in the space?
Yes, absolutely.
It was most definitely. I tried a couple of times to, both online and earlier today, to talk about the heights of the ceiling. Low height, even with low numbers, he
I'd
was
also
not-
like to ask Jus if he can pull the rows out. So we have actually, we close rows. We need a conversation. So you'll let us know when you're available.
I could be available after 1,
Okay, excellent.
but I wouldn't stay there as long as the other people have to stay there.
Say again?
I said, but I wouldn't stay as long as the other people meeting might need to stay to really, put whatever plan is more into action and to figure out.
Well,
what-
David has to be there. This is David's. We have to check with David. I see David's driving. I'm afraid he's going to drive into the hotel wall.
Mhm.
Be careful, David. You have a wall behind you.
And there's a lot of people. Be careful.
So we'll talk tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, so have a good night and a good
And
Chodesh.
thank you for arranging this.
Lady,
This
thank you
was
so much about her raising this.
far better than I anticipated.
Yeah.
He's a very, very charismatic individual and very smart.
Very generous.
I did prep him a little bit.
Why am I not
What the
surprised?
sentiments were,
Why am I not surprised?
but not beyond limits.
Okay, thank you.
The truth is, when I told him what some of your concerns might be, he expressed a lot more reservations than he did on the Zoom program, but that's okay.
Okay. Okay?
All right, have a good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
Chodesh.
Hi, everybody.
Good pleasure.
David, safe journey, David.
I'm home now, thank you.
Ah,
Thank God.
it always looks the same. You're always home.
Right.
Yeah.
You got the cursor behind you, you're already told.
Right.
All right, we may continue. Thank you.
Signing out.
Thank you, everybody.